Welcome back. Week 2 of Prospect Football Weekly is here, brought to you by Buffalo Wild Wings. Coach Sebestyen, welcome back.
Paul, it's good to see you.
So, you guys won the opening game of the season. When's the last time you guys have done that?
It's been a couple years. 2012 is the last time that we opened up the season with a victory. We beat Glenbrook South that year. We've obviously played some good competition. Last year's game, it was a heartbreaker, which we lost in the last 30 seconds. So it's nice to start 1-0.
Then obviously starting 1-0, looking to go 2-0, undefeated during the Prospect Football Weekly run. So hopefully you can keep that going.
That would be nice.
Looking at last Friday's game, what would be the few words you would use to summarize that game's performance?
I think perseverance and playing a full 48 minutes. I think our kids persevered through some adversity at points and then really just continued to play the game, played each play in front of them, and played a full 48 minutes. And I think that's why they were successful on all three levels.
And as we talked about last week, that was Andrew Schaff's first game as a varsity quarterback. How impressed were you with him on Friday?
I think Andy did a very nice job. I think he focused in terms of just sticking to his basics in terms of what he was looking at and making sure he stayed within himself. I think his calmness in terms of management of the offense was huge. I think the kids followed his lead, and Andy kept them kind of controlled in terms of what we were doing. So I think his first performance as a quarterback was very good. I think the thing that we got to remember is he's a 3-year varsity starter, so he's used to a pressure moment. So it wasn't a big surprise, but it was a nice thing for him in that first game.
Then obviously all three phases of your team look like they're performing really well: offense, defense, special teams. Is that a complete performance that you expect out of them and that you want to continue to see?
I would say no, it's not a complete performance because it's the first one through. I think if you really take time to look at the film, look at all the different aspects that went on, we've got a lot of work to do. We did some really good things in all three phases of the game, and we did some things that we really need to focus on fixing. Our pursuit angles needed to be better defensively at times. The first touchdown's a great example of that. I mean, we literally tripped our own defenders on each other's feet as the Wembley kid went down the sideline. Offensively, I think there are some major blocking schemes that we've got to address. Some things with the running backs we got to work on. Special teams wise, the first time we went to punt, we only had 10 kids. So while there were things that obviously we did well, there's a lot of things that we need to continue to do better. Week 1 to week 2 is the biggest week of improvement that you have in a season because you now know where you are at and where you need to go. So this is going to be an important week for us to continue to grow and get better.
And then what impressed you about your defense? They looked undersized for the most part against Hinsdale South.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of performance did they put on?
Well, we're going to be an undersized defense when you look at us. We're starting 4 guys in the defensive backfield that all could play in a 5'8" and under league for basketball. Our 3 linebackers, we started a sophomore last week because one of our starters, Josh McDermott, was out. He'll be back this week. We were starting 3 linebackers that are all going about 175 pounds or less. And even our defensive line, we're starting a defensive end who played his first football game at Prospect High School on Friday night, and Joe Doyle. So we are going to be undersized, but we use our quickness, we use our athleticism to our advantage as much as we possibly can. And if we play as a unit, it really shouldn't matter what the size of the kid is.
And then what kind of weapon is Jack Rubin for you guys? He obviously hit that huge 45-yard field goal. Going on, what kind of value is he going to present to your team?
Jack's a huge weapon for us. And I think you're getting to see why Jack is a Division I level football player in terms of kicking and in the kicking game. Jack hits the 45-yarder with, it looks like he's just kicking an extra point. He's very relaxed in what he does. He goes through his progression. That's a kid who's worked very hard at the skill. He hit the 35-yarder early in the game. The field position he creates by the touchbacks he creates on kickoffs are huge. Jack is a weapon in a field possession game for your defense as well as your offense. He allows you to be able to extend your scoring zone. Jack is, and he plays special teams as well as defense and offense. He's playing safety for us. He played receiver for us. Jack's a very good, athlete, and I'm glad for him because he didn't get a chance to obviously play much last year when the injury happened to him. So for him to be able to come back out and have success like he did, I think we all expected that he would be able to do that because that's just kind of the athlete that Jack is. So we're a great weapon for us.
And obviously, Jack might be the face of your special teams, but your special teams as a whole did a great job on Friday night. Blocked extra point, also had the blocked punt. How impressed were you with that, to see that in week 1?
Our special teams did a really nice job. We've talked about the idea that you have to play all 3 phases of the game to be successful. That our special teams either is going to win us or lose us a game this year. And if you look at it, Jeremy Potratz with the blocked punt right at the end of the half is a huge thing. If they get that punt away, we'd probably take a knee. It's a 10-7 football game. Instead, we put ourselves into a position to be able to kick a field goal with Jack, and it's 13-7. Elijah Mahan blocks the extra point to keep the game tied at 13. We talked about our special teams essentially giving us 4 points. We won by 4 points, so that's a special teams win in that sense. So you've got to be able to play all 3 phases of a football game to be successful. It's just the end of it. If you can't do that at all 3 phases, you don't take that 3rd phase of special teams seriously, you're going to find yourself on the losing end more than you can find yourself on the winning end. So we're really happy with how they performed. We're going to have another challenge, obviously, coming up this week that we've got to be prepared for.
And then both Zach Gleason and Chase Cummings, Zach Gleason we'll be seeing later in the show, had huge catches to keep drives going in the game. Did you use the passing game more than you expected? And also, just how important is it that you can get those catches to keep drives going?
To be very frank with you, I think we used the passing game less than I expected. We really wanted to try to put the ball up in the air a little bit more coming into game 1. The game flow sometimes doesn't allow that to happen, and we started really trying to control the game clock, wear at the defense a little bit. They have such a great group of athletes over there at Hinsdale South, and they played such a tough game. But we, they had a lot of kids that were playing both ways, so we were trying to, pound at their defense a little bit to try to maybe make it a little bit more difficult for some of those kids who were on the field consistently on both sides of the ball. So running the ball helped to do that. Getting behind some of those big kids up front did that. But I think we would like to put the ball up more. I think the misnomer or misconception about our offense is that it's such a running-based offense that they don't like to throw. To be very frank with you, I'm an old high school frustrated quarterback. So trust me, if we could throw 40 times a game, we would. It just doesn't fit necessarily the personality of what we do offensively. So. We've really gotten good at running the football, and we want to continue to do that. But I think you'll see us as the year goes on and progresses, especially because the receivers are doing such a nice job, put the ball up more times in a game.
And that running game that you talked about controlling the clock with, you said last week that a lot of kids would see touches out of the backfield. Who really impressed you?
I think Brandon Inori, really impressed us at this point. Brandon's a young kid who is doing a good job. He did a nice job in the game. Dante obviously had touched the ball a couple times. Michael got a couple carries, but he played defense more than anything else. So, and I think that will continue. I think you still see Connor Heimdall, Stu Estefanos all get touches, as well as obviously Andy. But the kids are doing a nice job working together and helping each other.
All right. Thank you, Coach. Next up, we have Zach Gleason on Prospect Football Weekly. All right, we are here with Zach Gleason, wide receiver and defensive back for your Knights. Zach, thanks for joining us.
Good to be here.
So, how exciting was it on Friday night when Dante Sakela came down with the game-winning interception?
Well, that was very exciting. Knowing that ball was not going in their hands whatsoever was a very reassuring thing that we were just taking that game over and finishing it.
Do you think it had anything to do with the fact that Dante was our first guest ever on Prospect Football Weekly?
That could have been a possibility.
You had a huge sideline catch on that game-winning that game to take the lead in the game and that drive. It kept the drive going. What was it like? I mean, how hard is it to make a play like that? And also, do you think you have the confidence in yourself to keep making those plays this year?
And it's not so hard. We've practiced it so much in practice with that specific play, specific route. And I just have the confidence that Chef's going to put that ball on me at any time, in any situation, and I'll catch it.
Right. Obviously, you guys run a more run-heavy offense. Do you feel that the wide receivers are almost like undervalued because they don't see as many touches as the running backs do?
No, I mean, we're just as important as every other player on the field. We got to make sure we get our blocks on the edge, spring a big run, just make sure that, because when our time is called to catch a ball, that we've done everything to earn that.
And then, obviously knowing, going to get less targets, you talked about making blocks in the running game, but how do you feel you make an impact on the defensive side of the ball to make up for the fact that maybe you don't get as many opportunities on the offensive side of the ball?
It's indifferent. I mean, I feel offense, I don't really let that affect how I'm going to play at defense, because offense, I know I'm not going to get that many touches, but I know I'm going to affect it by blocking. In the defense, I just got to know I got to play my technique, make sure I don't get beat, and make sure I'm just an all-around team player.
What was it like being in the huddle with Andrew Shaffis in his first game as a varsity quarterback? What did he do to lead you guys?
We're not in the huddle often, but it was good to see Shaff keeping his cool on the field. Just during practice, sometimes he has his moments, but it was great to see how he controlled himself, and when he's calm, everyone else is going to stay calm, knowing that he's the leader.
And then Andrew made a lot of throws on the run. He was moving a lot when he was throwing. What kind of confidence does that give you guys as receivers, knowing that he can be on the run to evade pressure, but still give you guys very accurate throws?
Oh, it's very nice. Even though maybe if we don't get the ball, it's going to have a nice running lane for him, but he's been working on that all summer, getting that ball downhill to the receivers on the run. It was nice to see that finally paid off in a game.
All right. Thank you very much, Zach, and we will be right back. We are now here with Coach Jackie Gronski for cheerleading. Mrs. Gronski, thank you for joining us.
Glad to be here.
Thank you. Last year, you guys won the MSL title and the IHSA sectional title. What was it like getting to experience that?
It was a feeling kind of hard to put into words, truthfully. As a former athlete and now a coach, to win 2 titles in one season is something short of amazing, but it's something I hope that every athlete can kind of experience. Still talking about last season kind of brings tears to my eyes because of how much we enjoyed it.
And then you guys obviously went to the state competition after winning the sectional title. What kind of experience did that give the members of the team?
It gave our girls the opportunity to compete against the best of the best at the state level. I think what was awesome about that is they got to see how they truly ranked amongst all of Illinois' teams, and shows us what we really need to improve on to be more competitive in future seasons.
So obviously you guys are a little bit removed from your next competition season. So what are you guys doing now to prepare for that, even though it's so far away?
We spend a lot of time working the progression of our skills, stunting, tumbling, and stretching. A lot of people don't realize that a lot of these skills take time. You can't just pull them out of thin air. So we work safe progression so that the girls can make big gains.
That's good. And then upperclassmen coming back, how are they leading the team now that they have the experience of going to state?
They're taking their experience from state and working to make sure that our younger athletes in the program understand that the hard work that they're putting in now is detrimental to how they're going to perform during competitive season. So we see them taking things a lot more seriously, from practices to performing at games, and using those experiences to help prep them for our competitive season.
Behind the scenes, you guys working on stuff, what probably would surprise people that see your show during halftime, during football games?
Just the amount of time the girls do outside of practices and games. They're involved and attend tumble classes regularly outside of the building. They're constantly working on their conditioning and their flexibility. And all of the time that goes into that is truly tremendous and done on their own, so their commitment is really high.
And then what about this team specifically is special compared to other teams that you've had before?
The varsity team this year truly cares about building the program as a whole. They want to close the gap in skills between our JV and varsity levels, so they are fully committed to making sure our JV athletes are learning the same skills as they are, to kind of make us all successful as a whole program rather than as individual teams.
And what is it like for your team to be supporting the football team week in and week out?
We love supporting football, but not just football. We like to refer to it as our Friday night family. So supporting the band and the Palms team, we know how hard everyone works all summer long to just, get going in the fall. So we really like being out there, rain or shine. Not so much the snow, but yeah, we're there for them.
All right, thank you very much for joining us, and we will be right back with Coach Sebestyen. We are once again joined by Coach Sebestyen on Prospect Football Weekly, sponsored by Buffalo Wild Wings. and we're going to preview this Friday's matchup against Barrington. So Barrington last week won convincingly 41-15 over Glenbrook South. How do you keep your team level-headed against a team that appears to be on a roll coming off their last game?
I think you focus on your process and focus on your team. I think that's the most important thing going forward is, you understand the opponent you're about to play, what they're doing schematically, where they obviously have a lot of strength. But you focus on yourself. You focus on you getting better as you go through a week. You don't really worry about an opponent in front of you in that sense. You worry about them in terms of what you have to do to be ready to play against them on a Friday night.
Speaking of what you guys have to do, Barrington gained 221 yards on 24 carries on the ground. How do you expect your defense to contain that running game on Friday?
Well, I think we've got to play disciplined defense and play within the structure of what we do as a defense. If we have 11 guys playing within the unit and playing our scheme, we give ourselves an opportunity. If we have guys trying to maybe do more than their job requires, you're going to start to see seams pop open and have situations where they have some really good athletes. The quarterback in the backfield is a young kid, but he moves well. He had an 86-yard touchdown run on Friday night. The tailbacks are a pretty good group of kids. You're going to have some problems. So we've got to just stay within the discipline of our defense and what we're supposed to do schematically and give ourselves an opportunity. And that's all we can ask of them.
And also, Barrington gained 138 yards in the air on 6 completions, so obviously they have big play potential also with the pass. How are you going to be able to balance that with also stopping the run?
Well, I think, again, you allow your interior kids to kind of take care of the run game, and you ask your defensive backs to be able to kind of contain a passing game at that point. Keep things in front of them. I think that's one of the biggest things. They have big game potential in terms of the receiving core. Josh Babbitts is going to go play Division I football next year. He's 6'6", like 210, 215 pounds. A very athletic receiver. I think you've got to be smart in terms of what you're doing with him. But they also have kids on the other side of this formation that can do the same thing. So Barrington's a really good football team. They're a very athletic group. They're well coached. Coach Sanchez has done a great job over there in terms of getting them, consistently deep in the playoffs the last few years. So it's going to be a tall challenge for us going forward.
And then your defense was able to force turnovers last week to set up opportunities for your offense, but Barrington only committed 1 turnover in their game last week. How do you expect your defense to be able to keep committing those turnovers?
Well, I think the big thing is continuing to preach what we've talked about, which is swarming to the football. Flying around, getting guys to the ball itself. First guy getting the good form tackle, second guy popping the ball away. We've made an emphasis this summer and done a lot of work in terms of guys flying to the football, swarming to the football. I think that becomes a big deal for us. And if you do that, you give yourself more opportunities for when that ball is loose to be able to pounce on it. And that's what you saw in that game on Friday night with us. So you try to create the conditions so that if it does happen, you have success.
And then, what do you want your team to specifically improve on in this week's game?
I think the biggest thing at this point is just continuing to grow in terms of what we're doing offensively and defensively, making sure schematically, offensively, we continue to get better blocking-wise, making sure that we're understanding what we're doing. We're running the triple option offense that we've run. I think defensively, the biggest thing right now is making sure we're doing a good job, especially in the linebacking core, taking good reads. Defensive back-wise, making sure that we're understanding our checks going forward. I think all of those things become important. And that's really the big focus. Special teams-wise, making sure that, the one time that Jack might actually hit the ball where it doesn't go in the end zone, that we're doing a good job coverage-wise. Continue to do a better protection job in terms of our PAT field goal team. Continue to work on that block because you now know someone's going to adjust to how we block on our punt game. So there's little things in each phase that we need to continue to work on and get better at.
And then what kind of achievement would it be for your team to start 2-0 for the season?
Well, I think it would be important simply because it allows you one step closer to your eventual goal, which is to be playing Week 10 of a football season. A win Week 2 to put yourself 2-0 obviously puts you closer to that 5 victory goal that you need to at least have the potential to qualify, get you closer to the 6 that allows you the automatic qualification. But it doesn't necessarily impact anything in terms of the goal of trying to win the Mid-Suburban League East. And it doesn't necessarily draw away from the opportunity of obviously playing a playoff. It would just be a nice way to continue momentum going forward. And I think that's the biggest focus is, what do we do for the next 48 minutes to continue the momentum going forward? Win, lose, or draw, what are we doing to continue to get better?
Thank you very much, Coach. Good luck on Friday night.
Thank you very much.
This has now been Week 2 of Prospect Football Weekly. I'm Paul Evers, and we will see you next week.